Step inside the UK's most haunted shopping centres, where the echoes of the past refuse to fade. Beneath the bright lights and bustling crowds, ghostly whispers linger, unseen figures roam empty corridors, and chilling encounters leave even skeptics shaken. From phantom children to Victorian apparitions, these retail hubs hide dark secrets in their foundations. Join us as we uncover the terrifying true stories behind 10 haunted shopping centres, where every shadow could be more than it seems. Don't watch this alone after dark. Subscribe now to help us hit 1K subs by September 2025. Your support fuels our hunt for the supernatural. Let's make these ghost stories go viral. 1. The Galleries Shopping Centre, Bristol. The Galleries Shopping Centre in Bristol looks like any ordinary place to shop, but behind its bright storefronts and busy food court lies a darker past, one filled with ghostly whispers and unexplained happenings. Built in the early 1990s, the shopping centre stands on land that was once home to cramped slums, a grim Victorian workhouse, and even forgotten burial grounds. It's no wonder that over the years, staff, cleaners, and late-night workers have reported spine-chilling encounters that suggest the past never truly left. One of the most famous ghost stories revolves around the women's toilets, where visitors and employees have heard the sound of a woman crying when no one else is around. Cleaners working after closing time have been startled by sobbing coming from locked stalls, only to find them empty when they check. Some have even seen a pale, sad-faced woman in old-fashioned clothing reflected in the mirrors, vanishing the moment they turn to look. Many believe she could be a spirit from the workhouse days, a mother who lost a child or a desperate woman who met a tragic end within those walls. Whatever her story, her grief seems to linger, echoing through the tiled corridors long after the shoppers have gone home. Night security guards have their own tales to tell, footsteps following them on their rounds, doors slamming shut without explanation, and the uneasy feeling of being watched. One guard reported seeing a man in an outdated uniform standing at the end of a dimly lit hallway, only for the figure to melt into the shadows when approached. Others have heard the jangle of keys and muffled voices in empty sections of the building, as if an unseen patrol is still making its rounds. Some say it's the ghost of a former guard who died on duty, while others think the building itself holds on to the memories of the past, replaying moments like a broken record. Near the elevators, shoppers have reported sudden drops in temperature before catching sight of a tall, shadowy figure lingering just out of view. Some have felt an icy breath on their necks or the sensation of being gently pushed from behind, only to turn and find no one there. Others have seen the dark outline of a man in long, old-fashioned clothing standing motionless near the escalators, his presence sending a ripple of unease through those who pass by. Whether he's a lost soul from the slums that once stood here or a remnant of something older, his appearances leave little doubt that the Galleries is more than just a shopping centre, it's a place where the past refuses to stay buried. With so many stories of unexplained happenings, the Galleries has earned its reputation as one of the UK's most haunted shopping centres. Whether it's the crying woman, the phantom guard, or the shadowy figure by the elevators, the ghosts of Bristol's past seem determined to make themselves known. For those who listen closely, the echoes of history are still whispering between the shops, proof that some stories don't end when the lights go out. 2. The Oracle Shopping Centre, Reading. The Oracle Shopping Centre in Reading may be a modern retail paradise by day, but as night falls, whispers of its haunted past begin to surface. Built in 1999 on land steeped in history, the shopping mall sits where the old Reading jail once stood, along with parts of the medieval town that met brutal ends during plagues and wars. This dark heritage seems to have left its mark, with numerous reports of ghostly encounters that chill even the most skeptical visitors. Staff working late have reported strange happenings throughout the mall, particularly near the riverside area where the old prison walls once stood. Security cameras have captured shadowy figures moving through empty corridors, only to vanish when investigated. Some guards speak of hearing phantom footsteps pacing behind them, matching their stride but stopping the moment they turn around. Others have felt sudden, unexplained cold spots, pockets of icy air in otherwise warm hallways that seem to follow them as they walk. The most unsettling reports come from the lower levels, where workers have heard faint, anguished moans echoing from the walls, as if the suffering of former prisoners still lingers in the stone. One of the most persistent ghosts is said to be that of a Victorian woman in a long, tattered dress, seen wandering near the cinema complex. Witnesses describe her as pale and disoriented, sometimes appearing to search for something before fading through a wall. Some believe she may be connected to the many who died in the workhouses that once occupied the area, while others speculate she could be a grieving mother from the jail's darker days. Cleaners have reported seeing her reflection in the glass storefronts late at night, her hollow eyes staring back before she disappears into thin air. Perhaps the most chilling account comes from a restaurant worker who stayed behind to close up. Alone in the kitchen, they heard the distinct sound of a child giggling, followed by small, running footsteps. When they went to investigate, they found all the doors locked and the dining area completely empty. Moments later, pots and pans began rattling violently on their hooks without explanation. Others have reported similar experiences, unseen hands brushing against arms, whispered voices calling names when no one is there, and the overwhelming feeling of being watched in certain corridors. The oracle's ghostly activity seems to peak near the old riverbank sections, where centuries ago, bodies were allegedly dumped during plagues and executions. Some visitors report feeling nauseous or dizzy in these areas for no apparent reason, while others have captured strange orbs and misty figures in photographs. Whether these are the lost souls of prisoners, plague victims, or something even older remains a mystery. What's certain is that beneath its shiny modern facade, the oracle holds dark secrets that refuse to stay buried. Proving that even in a place of leisure and shopping, the past never truly fades away. 3. The Grosvenor Shopping Centre, Northampton. The Grosvenor Shopping Centre in Northampton may appear to be just another modern retail complex, but those who work late know it holds chilling secrets. Built in the 1970s on land with a long, troubled history, the shopping centre stands where Victorian slums once crowded together, a place of poverty, disease, and untimely deaths. Over the years, staff and security guards have reported eerie encounters that suggest the past never truly left, and some of its former residents may still linger among the shoppers. One of the most common reports comes from cleaners working after hours, who describe hearing children's laughter echoing through empty corridors when the mall is deserted. Some have seen small, shadowy figures darting between the closed shutters of shops, their tiny footsteps pattering on the tiled floors before vanishing into thin air. The sounds often come from the lower levels, where the old foundations of the slums still remain beneath the modern structure. Many believe these playful spirits could be the ghosts of children who died during the area's cholera outbreaks in the 1800s, their innocent energy forever trapped where they once lived and played. Security guards patrolling at night have their own unsettling stories. One veteran guard reported seeing a woman in a long, tattered Victorian dress standing motionless near the escalators, her hollow eyes staring straight through him before she faded away. Others have encountered a tall, gaunt man in old-fashioned work clothes who appears near the service corridors, only to disappear when approached. The most disturbing accounts come from the underground staff areas, where multiple employees have reported feeling an invisible presence breathing down their necks, accompanied by the overwhelming scent of damp earth and decay. As if the very walls remember the suffering that once took place there. Perhaps the most chilling incident occurred when a shop manager stayed late to complete stocktake. Alone in the back room, she heard the distinct sound of someone whispering her name, though no one else was in the building. When she turned, shelves of merchandise suddenly collapsed with tremendous force, despite being securely anchored. As she fled, she swears she heard a deep, guttural laugh coming from the darkness behind her. Others have reported similar poltergeist activity, mysterious banging noises, lights flickering without explanation, and electronics malfunctioning in certain spots, particularly near the center's oldest sections. The Grosvenor's ghostly activity seems most intense around the anniversary of the 1876 Northampton cholera epidemic, when hundreds died in the very streets beneath where shoppers now browse. Some sensitive visitors report sudden waves of sadness or unease in particular spots, while others have captured strange mists and unexplained shadows in photographs. Whether these are residual echoes of tragedy or something more intelligent remains unclear, but one thing is certain: The Grosvenor shopping centre's bright, modern facade hides a much darker history that occasionally makes itself known to those who work there after hours, serving as a grim reminder that the past never truly dies. For the Arndale Centre, Manchester. The Arndale Centre in Manchester stands as one of Britain's busiest shopping hubs, its modern glass and steel structure buzzing with thousands of visitors daily. But beneath this contemporary facade lies a darker history that occasionally bleeds into the present. Built in the 1970s on land that once housed Victorian slums, industrial mills, and even parts of Manchester's original medieval town, the shopping centre has become notorious among staff and security for unexplained occurrences that defy logical explanation. Many believe the spirits of those who suffered during Manchester's industrial heyday never truly left the site. Night workers tell particularly chilling stories about the lower levels near the Old Market Street entrance, where the echoes of Manchester's past seem strongest. Cleaners report hearing phantom machinery noises, the rhythmic clanking of looms and hissing steam engines that haven't operated in over a century. Some have seen fleeting shadows of figures in Victorian work clothes moving between the support pillars, their forms semi-transparent and glowing faintly before dissolving into nothing. Security guards checking CCTV footage have occasionally spotted these apparitions on camera, only for them to vanish between frames. The most common report is of sudden temperature drops in specific spots, accompanied by an overwhelming smell of coal smoke and damp wool, the distinct odors of 19th century Manchester's textile industry. One of the most frequently seen spirits is that of a young mill girl, no more than 12 years old, dressed in tattered work clothes. She appears most often near the food court, her small form flickering like an old film projection before disappearing. Witnesses describe her hollow cheeks and soot-stained face, her mouth moving as if trying to speak, though no sound ever comes. Historians confirm this area was once part of Manchester's notorious child mill district, where orphan children worked brutal 16-hour shifts. Some staff refuse to work certain late shifts alone, convinced the girl follows them through empty corridors, her bare feet making no sound on the tiled floors. Perhaps the most disturbing incidents occur in the service tunnels beneath the shopping center. Maintenance workers report tools going missing only to reappear in impossible locations, and the sound of children giggling in the pitch-black passageways. Several electricians have sworn they've seen shadowy figures crawling along the tunnel ceilings, like spiders, their limbs elongated and unnatural. One security guard resigned after encountering what he described as a crowd of starving people, standing silently in a disused stairwell, their sunken eyes and outstretched hands vanishing when he blinked. The 1996 IRA bombing that devastated part of the center may have added new layers to its haunted reputation. Some shop workers report seeing a well-dressed businessman who paces nervously near the site of the explosion before disappearing through a wall. Others have heard phantom screams and smelled burning right before the anniversary of the attack. Whether these are echoes of tragedy or something more supernatural remains unclear, but they've cemented the Arndale's reputation as a place where Manchester's painful history refuses to stay buried. Even during busy shopping hours, sensitive visitors sometimes report sudden feelings of dread in certain spots, as if the cheerful modern mall is just a thin veneer over something much older and far more troubled. 5. The Mall Luton. The Mall Luton, with its bright storefronts and bustling food court, presents a cheerful face to shoppers by day. But as the last stores close and the lights dim, something altogether more unsettling emerges in the empty corridors. Built on land with a complex past that includes Victorian factories, wartime bomb sites, and even rumored plague pits, the shopping centre has developed a reputation among night staff and cleaners as one of Bedfordshire's most actively haunted locations. The stories that emerge from its shadowy corners suggest the modern mall sits uneasily atop layers of forgotten suffering. Night security guards report the most frequent encounters, particularly around the older sections near the car park entrances. Many describe hearing the distinct sound of factory machinery, the rhythmic clatter of looms and hissing steam pipes, despite no such equipment existing in the building. These phantom industrial noises often accompany sudden drops in temperature and the faint smell of engine oil and burning coal. Several guards have reported seeing shadowy figures in outdated work clothes moving purposefully through walls where doorways once stood in the original factories. One veteran guard swears he saw an entire shift of spectral workers materialize near the service elevators, their gaunt faces illuminated by an eerie glow, before fading away like smoke. The upper level near the former cinema site has become notorious for more disturbing activity. Cleaners working early morning shifts report hearing a woman sobbing uncontrollably, the sound seeming to come from behind locked fire doors. When investigated, the corridors stand empty, though some have reported finding wet footprints leading to nowhere. The ghostly crying is often accompanied by the sound of a baby's whimpers, growing increasingly distressed before cutting off abruptly. Local historians note this area was once part of Luton's poorest slum district, where disease and infant mortality rates were shockingly high in the 19th century. Perhaps the most chilling accounts come from the underground service tunnels that connect different parts of the mall. Maintenance workers refuse to enter certain sections alone after multiple reports of being touched by unseen hands or hearing whispers right beside their ears. Several have reported tools being snatched from their belts, only to be found later in completely different parts of the complex. One electrician described seeing a pair of glowing eyes watching him from inside an unused ventilation shaft, their unblinking stare following him until he fled the area. Others have captured strange anomalies on their phones, misty figures and unexplained lights that appear in photos but weren't visible to the naked eye. The mall's modern history adds another layer to its haunted reputation. Staff working late near the former Woolworths location, site of a devastating fire in the 1970s, sometimes report smelling smoke and hearing crackling flames when no fire exists. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures running in panic through the smoke detectors flashing lights during overnight tests. Whether these are echoes of past tragedies or something more sentient remains unclear, but they've created an atmosphere of unease among those who work after hours. Even by day, sensitive visitors occasionally report sudden feelings of being watched in certain spots, or catching glimpses of figures in period clothing that disappear when they look twice. The Mall Luton may serve cheerful shoppers by daylight, but its night shift workers know they share the space with something far older and more mysterious than the retail brands lining its corridors. 6. Eldon Square, Newcastle upon Tyne. Eldon Square in Newcastle upon Tyne presents a gleaming face of modern retail to the world, but beneath its polished surfaces lies a much darker history. Built in the 1970s on land that once held Victorian slums, a medieval friary, and even ancient burial grounds, the shopping center has become notorious among staff for unexplained occurrences that suggest its past residents never truly left. The most chilling reports tend to come from the oldest sections of the complex, where the weight of history seems to press most heavily against the present. Night security guards share stories of encountering a mysterious monk-like figure near the service corridors behind the John Lewis store. Described as tall and gaunt, dressed in tattered brown robes, the apparition appears most often near the foundations of the old Blackfriars monastery that once stood on the site. Several guards have reported following the figure only to find themselves suddenly lost in parts of the building they know well, as if the very layout of the center shifts around them. One guard's account stands out. He claims to have seen the monk standing before a wall that momentarily transformed into the stone arches of an ancient cloister before fading back to modern concrete. The shopping center's lower levels, built over what was once Newcastle's most notorious slum district, produce even more disturbing encounters. Cleaners working early morning shifts report hearing children's laughter and running footsteps in empty corridors, sometimes accompanied by the sound of small hands banging against the inside of locked store shutters. Several have reported seeing dirty, malnourished childlike figures peering out from service doorways, their hollow eyes and ragged clothing suggesting they might be ghosts of workhouse children from the 1800s. These apparitions never speak, but their desperate expressions leave witnesses shaken for days. Perhaps the most widely witnessed phenomenon is the Lady in Grey, who haunts the central atrium. Seen by both staff and shoppers, she appears as a well-dressed Victorian woman who walks briskly across the crowded floor before vanishing near the escalators. Those who've encountered her up close describe an overwhelming sense of sadness, with some reporting they could actually see straight through her to the shops behind. Security cameras have occasionally captured her image, though technicians can never explain how she appears on footage without ever being seen entering or exiting the frame. The shopping center's service tunnels tell a more sinister story. Maintenance workers report tools going missing and reappearing in impossible locations, hearing whispered conversations in empty passageways, and feeling unseen hands brush against them in the darkness. Several refuse to work alone after encountering what they describe as shadow people, humanoid shapes of pure darkness that move against the laws of physics, sometimes passing straight through walls. The most disturbing account comes from an electrician who swears he saw a group of these figures gathered around something on the tunnel floor, their elongated limbs moving in unison as if performing some unholy ritual before they noticed him and dissolved into the walls. Even during busy shopping hours, sensitive visitors sometimes report sudden drops in temperature in specific spots, or the inexplicable feeling of being watched in certain stores. The H&M location, built over what was once a cholera burial ground, seems particularly active, with staff reporting clothes moving on their racks and mannequins shifting position overnight. Whether these phenomena are residual echoes of past tragedies or something more interactive remains unclear, but they've cemented Eldon Square's reputation as a place where Newcastle's layered history refuses to stay quietly in the past. For those who work there after hours, the shopping centre becomes a very different place, one where the boundary between present and past grows disturbingly thin. 7. The Dolphin Centre, Poole. The Dolphin Shopping Centre in Poole might appear as just another modern retail complex by day, but as the last shoppers leave and the lights dim, something far more unsettling stirs in its empty corridors. Built in the 1980s on land that was once a bustling medieval harbour, then later a Victorian workhouse and infirmary, the centre seems to retain echoes of its troubled past. Staff working late shifts share whispered stories of encounters that defy explanation, suggesting the cheerful shopping mall sits uneasily atop centuries of human suffering. Night security guards report the most frequent activity in the lower levels near the car park entrances, where the old workhouse foundations still remain beneath the modern structure. Many describe hearing phantom coughing fits and moans of pain that seem to come from the walls themselves, likely residual echoes from when the building served as an infirmary during Poole's devastating cholera outbreaks. Several guards have reported seeing fleeting glimpses of gaunt, sickly figures in old-fashioned nightshirts wandering the service corridors, their hollow eyes staring blankly before they vanish around corners. One particularly chilling account tells of a guard who followed what he thought was a lost showacre only to watch the figure walk straight through a solid wall where a doorway had stood in the original infirmary building. The center's food court area holds its own dark secrets. Cleaners working early morning shifts often report hearing the sound of children's laughter and running footsteps when the area is completely deserted. Some have seen small, shadowy figures darting between the tables, their bare feet making no sound on the tiled floor. These apparitions are often accompanied by the sudden, overwhelming smell of carbolic soap, a disinfectant commonly used in Victorian institutions. Local historians note this area was once part of the workhouse children's dormitories, where many orphans died during disease epidemics. Several staff members refuse to work alone in this section after experiencing what they describe as invisible hands, tugging at their uniforms or hearing whispered pleas for help in empty corners. Perhaps the most disturbing activity occurs near the center's old service elevators, which stand where the workhouse punishment cells once were. Maintenance workers report tools going missing and reappearing in impossible locations, hearing agonized screams that cut off abruptly, and feeling sudden, inexplicable drops in temperature. One electrician described seeing shadowy figures with elongated limbs crawling along the ceiling, like spiders, their movements jerky and unnatural before they melted into the walls. Several security cameras in this area have mysteriously malfunctioned, their footage showing strange distortions and static bursts during otherwise quiet nights. Even during business hours, sensitive visitors sometimes report sudden feelings of unease in certain spots, particularly near the H&M store which stands over what was once the workhouse morgue. Staff there have reported clothing racks moving on their own and mannequins being found in different positions overnight. Some shoppers have captured strange anomalies in their photos, misty figures standing between racks of clothes or peering from changing room mirrors. Whether these phenomena are residual hauntings or something more interactive remains unclear, but they've given the Dolphin Centre a reputation among paranormal investigators as one of Dorset's most actively haunted retail spaces. For those who work there after hours, the cheerful shopping environment transforms into something far more unsettling, a place where Poole's painful past refuses to stay buried. 8. The Whitgift Centre, Croydon. The Whitgift Centre in Croydon presents a cheerful face of modern consumerism by day, but as night falls, longtime staff whisper about unsettling encounters that suggest the shopping centre never fully left its troubled past behind. Built in the late 1960s on land that once housed Victorian workhouses, medieval plague pits, and even a medieval leper hospital, the complex seems to pulse with residual energy from centuries of suffering. Night security guards share stories of inexplicable cold spots that move through corridors like invisible predators, and shadowy figures glimpsed in peripheral vision that vanish when confronted directly. The most frequently reported apparition is the Grey Nurse, a spectral woman in old-fashioned medical attire seen drifting through the lower levels near the car park entrances. Described as having hollow eyes and a permanently sorrowful expression, she's often spotted near service corridors that once aligned with the boundaries of Croydon's old infirmary. Cleaners have reported hearing her whispering to unseen patients, the sound of her starched uniform rustling just out of sight. Some claim to have smelled antiseptic and old blood in her wake, a grim reminder of the medical horrors that once unfolded where shoppers now browse. Another hotspot for paranormal activity is the former site of the center's old food court, demolished during renovations but still remembered by longtime staff for its strange occurrences. Workers reported cutlery moving on its own, chairs scraping across the floor with no one nearby, and the overwhelming scent of boiled cabbage and carbolic soap, odors linked to the Victorian workhouse that once stood on the grounds. One security guard patrolling the area late at night swears he saw long dining tables materialize out of thin air, crowded with gaunt, shadowy figures hunched over empty bowls before the vision dissolved into nothingness. Perhaps the most disturbing encounters happen in the service tunnels beneath the shopping center, where maintenance crews refuse to work alone. Electricians have reported hearing children giggling in the darkness, followed by the sound of small, bare feet running toward them, only to find the tunnels completely empty. Others have seen shadowy figures darting just beyond the reach of their torchlight, their movements too quick, too fluid, to be human. One engineer resigned after an encounter with what he described as a mass of darkness that surged toward him from a disused stairwell, its form shifting like smoke before vanishing into the walls. Even during business hours, some shoppers report sudden, inexplicable feelings of dread in certain stores. Particularly those built over sections of the old plague burial grounds. Staff at one clothing retailer have reported mannequins turning their heads overnight, while others have heard disembodied whispers coming from empty changing rooms. Security cameras have captured unexplained figures wandering the halls after closing, their faces blurred or missing entirely from the footage. Whether these phenomena are echoes of Croydon's tragic past or something more sentient remains unclear, but one thing is certain: the Whitgift Centre's bright, modern facade conceals something far older and far darker. For those who work late shifts, the shopping centre becomes an entirely different place when the crowds disappear, its empty corridors humming with the whispers of those who never left. 9. The Victoria Centre, Nottingham. The Victoria Centre in Nottingham may be a bustling retail hub by day, but as the shops close and the last shoppers leave, an older, darker presence seems to awaken in its shadowy corners. Built in the 1970s on land that was once part of Nottingham's most notorious slums, the sprawling shopping centre stands where Victorian workhouses, cholera burial grounds, and even medieval plague pits once scarred the earth. Staff who work late shifts share uneasy stories of inexplicable occurrences that suggest the site's tragic past lingers like a stubborn stain beneath the modern complex. Night security guards report the most frequent encounters, particularly in the service corridors beneath the main shopping levels. Many describe hearing the phantom sounds of coughing and moaning that seem to rise up through the floor, echoes perhaps of the mass graves that were uncovered during construction. Several guards have reported seeing gaunt, shadowy figures in ragged clothing shuffling along the tunnels, their hollow eyes reflecting torchlight before they melt into the walls. One veteran guard swears he encountered an entire family of spectral figures huddled together near an emergency exit, their emaciated forms flickering like candle flames before disappearing into nothingness. The air in these underground passages often grows inexplicably cold, carrying with it the faint but unmistakable scent of damp earth and decay. The old clock tower area, built over what was once a Victorian orphanage, has become notorious among cleaning staff for more disturbing activity. Many report hearing children's laughter and running footsteps in empty corridors long after closing time. Some have seen small, pale faces peering out from between clothing racks in darkened stores, their expressions frozen in silent pleading before vanishing. The most chilling accounts come from workers who've heard the sound of a child sobbing uncontrollably, the cries seeming to come from behind locked stockroom doors that open to reveal nothing but stillness. Local historians confirm this section of the centre sits directly above the unmarked graves of workhouse children who died during Nottingham's 1832 cholera epidemic. Perhaps the most widely witnessed phenomenon is the Lady of the Escalators, a ghostly woman in Edwardian dress seen by both staff and shoppers near the centre's main staircase. Described as having an unnaturally pale complexion and hollow, sunken eyes, she's often spotted standing motionless on the escalators, her form slightly transparent against the moving steps. Those who've encountered her up close report feeling an overwhelming sense of despair, with some claiming to have heard her whisper, "Help me," just before she fades from view. Security cameras have captured her image multiple times, though technicians can never explain how she appears on footage without ever being seen entering or exiting the frame. The center's car park levels hold their own dark secrets. Several drivers have reported seeing shadowy figures darting between parked cars late at night, their movements too quick to be human. Maintenance workers speak of finding handprints on freshly cleaned windows, small, child-sized prints that appear overnight on panes several feet off the ground. One terrified cleaner resigned after encountering what she described as a wall of whispering faces that momentarily formed in the concrete of a service stairwell before dissolving back into blank wall. Even during busy shopping hours, sensitive visitors sometimes report sudden feelings of unease in certain spots, particularly near the H&M store which stands over the old cholera burial grounds. Staff there have reported clothing racks moving on their own and mannequins being found in different positions overnight. Some shoppers have captured strange anomalies in their photos, misty figures standing between clothing racks or appearing from changing room mirrors. Whether these phenomena are residual hauntings or something more interactive remains unclear, but they've given the Victoria Centre a reputation as one of Nottingham's most actively haunted locations. For those who work there after hours, the cheerful shopping environment transforms into something far more unsettling, a place where the city's painful past refuses to stay buried. 10. The Kingsgate Shopping Centre, Dunfermline, Scotland. The Kingsgate Shopping Centre in Dunfermline might seem like any other modern retail space, but those who work after hours tell a different story. Built in the 1970s on land steeped in Scottish history, the shopping centre stands where medieval plague pits, Victorian slums, and even ancient monastic grounds once lay. This layered past seems to have left its mark, with staff reporting strange occurrences that suggest the site's troubled history never truly faded away. Night security guards share the most unsettling stories, particularly about the lower levels near the car park, where the old foundations of Dunfermline's poorest tenements still linger beneath the modern structure. Many report hearing phantom footsteps pacing behind them, matching their stride but stopping the moment they turn around. Others have encountered sudden, inexplicable cold spots, pockets of icy air that cling to certain corridors no matter the heating settings. The most chilling accounts come from guards who've seen shadowy figures in outdated clothing standing motionless near service doors, their hollow eyes staring blankly before they vanish into the walls. Cleaners working early morning shifts often report hearing the sound of children giggling in empty corridors, their laughter echoing off the tiled floors long after the center has closed. Some have seen small, pale faces peering out from behind shuttered storefronts, their expressions frozen in silent curiosity before disappearing. These sightings are most frequent near the center's older sections, where historians confirm a Victorian orphanage once stood. Several staff members refuse to work alone in these areas after experiencing what they describe as invisible hands, tugging at their sleeves or hearing whispered pleas for help in otherwise silent hallways. Perhaps the most disturbing activity occurs near the service elevators, which stand where the old slum dwellings were demolished to make way for the shopping center. Maintenance workers report tools going missing and reappearing in impossible locations, hearing agonized moans that seem to come from the walls themselves, and feeling an overwhelming sense of being watched in the pitch-black tunnels beneath the complex. One electrician described encountering a gaunt, spectral woman in a tattered shawl standing at the end of a dimly lit corridor, her mouth moving as if silently screaming before she dissolved into the shadows. Even during business hours, some shoppers report sudden feelings of unease in certain stores, particularly those built over sections of the old plague burial grounds. Staff at one clothing retailer have reported mannequins shifting position overnight, while others have heard disembodied whispers coming from empty changing rooms. Security cameras have captured unexplained figures wandering the halls after closing, their faces blurred or missing entirely from the footage. Whether these phenomena are echoes of Dunfermline's tragic past or something more sentient remains unclear, but one thing is certain: the Kingsgate shopping centre's bright, modern facade conceals something far older and far darker. For those who work late shifts, the cheerful retail environment transforms when the crowds disappear, its empty corridors humming with whispers of those who may have never left.